Nights whisper, and the breath is heavy, and the light, there's always light. I can tell the hours by darkness moving above the sky, clouds, the possible, wind minding its business, knocking things over, hearing it all out of vision. I pull the dim dark in. What is it that makes, and where is it that matters in the how? This corner of the street contains the world, the sane, the insane, the moving, the still. And we thought the world can keep on moving, and we having gone out of ways to make it all work. Is it true? This truth can't and won't but will at last. The empty space demands the people holding signs, the slogans, and the march. And how does it feel to be fought for, to be the subject of the time, everyone speaking in your name, against your name, and to see the sky like no other, the strokes of light, however they are coming light by light, orange clouds above view, it's all new. The humming plane, the church as cover, and the sign, Black Lives, concrete, bricks brown and red, and in the morning light, the slogan on the wall, and the cold winter wind brushing stone. Regarding times, a poem written by Ahmad Almallah from his collection of poems, Border Wisdom. So good evening, my name is Charles Carr, and welcome to Philly Loves Poetry, a collaborative program between the Moonstone Arts Center of Philadelphia and PhillyCam. The focus of our program is to give our audience the experience of the rich culture of poetry in the city of Philadelphia. And tonight we have two very special, two remarkable poets, educators, translators from our community, Ahmad Almallah and his wife Huda Fakhreddine. Ahmad is a poet from Palestine and an artist in residence at the University of Pennsylvania. Ahmad is the author of Bitter English, which is published by the University of Chicago Press in 2019, and Border Wisdom, published by Winter Editions in 2023. Ahmad won the 2018 Edith Goldberg Paulson Memorial Prize for Creative Writing and the 2017 Blanche Colton Williams Fellowship. Ahmad's poems have been published in Jacket 2, Apiary, Supplement, Sand, Mission Quarterly Review, Cordite, American Poetry Review, and Poetry, among other publications. His wife, Huda Fakhreddine, work focuses on modernist movements or trends in Arabic poetry and their relationship to the Arabic literary tradition. Huda is interested in the role of the Arabic Kesa. She'll correct me on that, as a space for negotiating the foreign and the indigenous, the modern and the traditional, and its relationship to other poetic forms, such as free verse poem and the prose poem. Huda is the author of Metapoesis in the Arabic tradition, and co-translator of Lighthouse for the Drowning and The Sky That Denied Me. Huda's translation of modern Arabic poems have appeared in Banapol, World Literature Today, Arab Lit Quarterly, and the Middle Eastern Literature. And I really have to thank her because recently there were a number of Palestinian poets who have lost their lives, but Huda shared on Facebook and other social media translations of their poems in English. So welcome to you both. So I wanted to start our discussion off by asking you about what has happened to the literary tradition of Palestine in the wake of the war on Gaza and the war on Palestine. We as people that are interested in what is happening, of course, see a country reduced to rubble. We see the death, we see the numbers, we see the children. But there is another aspect to this, and it is the destruction of a culture. And I know that there have been artists, important Palestinian artists, that have lost their life along with their families. I know there are colleges and universities and schools and libraries. So I wanted you to share what you know about that with our audience.
I can talk about this for a minute or two, and maybe Huda can fill in the blanks. What has happened in Gaza is horrific. So all schools in Gaza have been destroyed. So kids have not been going to schools for almost 6 months right now. All universities in Gaza have been destroyed. And some of Gaza's intellectuals and academics have been killed. You can even say assassinated. There was a clear destruction of the entire educational system in Gaza in the continuing genocide on Gaza. I think the goal of this is to erase Palestinian culture and to erase Palestine from memory. And I think in that sense, Palestine has survived and has become part of world culture. And the solidarity that we're seeing with the Palestinians have made Palestine part of every country and every people's culture. And that's big. And I think Huda has done a great job picking up some of the pieces that belong to poets in Gaza who have been killed. And she gave these pieces. She used the historical moment to translate these poets into English, and I think that's a very special way of translating that she managed to achieve at this very, very difficult moment, and that speaks to the power of Palestinian culture. And Palestinian culture has been the main contributor to the arts of the Arab world. Palestinians have been the most notable movie makers, the most notable poets, the most notable painters, etc., etc. And their culture production is so strong and is becoming even stronger, I think, with this attempt to erase Palestinian culture. And that's the thing with culture. You can't easily erase it. It has a way of traveling and becoming, part of, other cultures in a way that you can't really stop it. Borders can't stop it, and weapons can't stop it, and that's the power of being an artist, I think. And I think that's why a lot of Palestinians are keen on being an artist, because that's also a thing that you can carry with you wherever you go. And however you become displaced because of the Israeli aggression, you can carry your art with you wherever you may end up. Yeah, thank you.
Well, we look at, the October date, as if, that is the watershed for everything, but that's not true. This has been more systematic. If one takes the time to really read some of the history, I just have, that kind of interest. And I went back and I've read a couple articles on the number of massacres that have taken place since 1937, and I was shocked. I was also shocked by the names of the people representing these terrorist groups in Israel that were part of this, and two of them became prime ministers of Israel. And it's so I only say that to say this is not new. It's almost like Palestine has been fighting for their culture for a very long time that it survived. The other remarkable thing, I don't know if it was true, I was reading one article that said the literacy rate in Palestine is 97.7%. And I compare that to my own country. I compare that to other countries at the present time. I think it's astounding, but looked at in the light of what is lost of a culture that has that level of literacy, it's more it's really more disturbing to think of it.
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that. As Ahmed said, I mean, the Palestinians have been facing genocidal powers of erasure for 75 years and more. And they have played a very important role in the cultural life across the Arab world. Because of their displaced state, their refugeedom, they have been editors, publishers, movie makers, artists across the Arab world. They've launched literary movements and literary and cultural platforms because they're holding, for dear life, they're holding on to the Palestinian story. And the Israeli aggression that is almost 80 years old now is an aggression against the Palestinian story, against Palestinian memory and Palestinian culture, because as Ahmed said, these are the most powerful. Those are very difficult to kill. You can level cities, you can destroy all the universities as they have done systematically in Gaza since October 7. They have targeted specific people of expertise, doctors, scientists, pharmacists, poets, university professors. They've killed them and they've come back to kill their families and their grandchildren and their children. This is genocide. It's undeniable. It's clear as day. And the world is witnessing it unfold live. And it is a project to erase and eradicate an entire people. And today, this is the second day of attacks on Rafah. Rafah is the southernmost tip of Gaza, which supposedly is the safe area. They've been telling people to evacuate from the north to the south since October 7th, and they've decided today, and yesterday actually, to invade Rafah. There is no doubt that this is a genocide. There is no doubt that this is erasure. And Palestinians only have their language and their culture and their heritage to hold on to. And look at it, it's invading the world. Palestinians are invading the world with their just cause and their arts and culture. Now we see Palestinian flags across American university campuses. We are all Palestinians in this moment. Everybody with a conscience is a Palestinian today. And this is winning. This is how Palestine will win at the end of this, through poetry, through art, and through a just cause of a people that has been fighting dark forces for more than 75 years.
Can you name give name and recognition to some of the
Yes.
really important voices of Palestinian poetry that we've lost?
I can't remember all the names. I wish I could, and I think I need to. We need to remember these names. But to mention a few, I mean, a name that is circulated, we've seen his face, we've heard him speak via Zoom before he was murdered, is Rifat Al-Arir, who is a university professor and a poet and a translator and an educator. He spoke to the world through various platforms since October 7th, and we could hear the bombs in the background. And we could hear the screams of the children in the house. in December, they targeted him and killed him along with his sister and her children. And just a week or so ago, they targeted his daughter and her infant child. This is genocide that is aiming to eradicate an entire lineage, an entire family, erase them off the face of the earth. Some of the other poets that I've been translating, and this is a name that I hold dear, is Hiba Abu Nada. She is a young poet who was murdered in an Israeli airstrike on October 20th. And I only discovered her after she was murdered, and I feel very guilty for that. It reminds us of how the people of Gaza have lived under siege and isolated from the world their entire lives. This is a 32-year-old poet who lived under siege her entire life, almost. I've been translating her work and have been in touch with her family, and we hope that when all this ends, we'll be able to publish some of her works. And another poet that I recently translated with Dan Sheehan, who's the editor at Literary Hub, his name is Muhammad Saleh. He was the youngest poet murdered in Gaza. He was 21. And there was a short video of him reading a very playful love poem that circulated after he was murdered. So when you watch that, you wish that this poet had lived to write more and make more decisions and mistakes. And
this is going to the other side of it. When I last had you as guest, 5 years ago,
maybe more,
what I kind of saw is a line between Palestinian and Israeli poets. And I'm wondering where that is. Where are the Israeli artists? And what role are they playing in that you can see? We don't get any information on that. We do know that there are protests against this government. But how does it play out in the relationship between the Palestinian poets and as have had with Israeli artists? Or can you speak to that at all?
I don't know if I can speak to that at the moment, because there has been, despite the fact that there are some demonstrations that are led primarily by the families of the kidnapped, I see that there is a marching behind this war from all aspects of Israeli cultures, and this has become the dominant narrative. And I know that some intellectuals who have expressed some dissent from that and some criticism to the genocide that is happening in Gaza. Some Israeli friends of mine in the United States have been disowned by their family, and they are no longer able to go back or contribute to Israeli culture in any shape or form. So that is what I see happening. I don't know if Huda can speak to that in a different way, or if she knows about a different aspect of...
Not much, but I think, Charles, you've touched on something that many of us have been noticing. I mean, our Facebook and social media pages are flooded with Palestinian voices, dead and alive. Where are the Israeli voices? I wonder, we all wonder. Israeli intellectuals and scholars and artists who are on the right side of history are marching with Palestinians. They are showing up to protect students in encampments here on U.S. campuses. But it's sad to say that within the state of Israel, voices of dissent are very low. We don't hear them. They're not as loud as they should be. I don't know. It's very easy to lose hope in these very dark days. But I think that there is a space that's still holding and cherishing and nourishing hope, which surprisingly is here in the United States. Our students are giving us hope. They are diverse groups of students. They're Jewish, they're Palestinian, they're Arab, they're Muslim, they're atheist, they're queer, they're trans, they're of all walks of life, and they are young. You know, this is what gives us hope. A young generation which might have been written off has suddenly woken up and is demanding bravely, braver than any of us, justice and divestment from an apartheid state. And it's holding institutions responsible. And it's actually revealing networks of oppression in this country, in academic institutions. So there's hope there. That's in that space is where Palestinians and Israeli fight together against the apartheid system that is the state of Israel.
I'll add to that maybe in the mainstream media there is a lot of talk about anti-Semitism, and there's no distinction between between Jews and Israel, and that's not how a lot of Jews in the United States feel. I've gone to rallies for Palestine and for Gaza, and I have seen a lot of Jewish presence in these rallies, and a lot of Jewish students who have stood up for Palestine and for Gaza. And as I said, a lot of Israeli friends of mine and intellectuals who have broken with their entire culture to take a stance, to take the right stance on the issue of genocide. I mean, that conflation, I think, is a dangerous one, and it's been, it's been part of the mainstream media. But I think it's clear that there's a big difference between anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic, and the world is learning that because the Jewish presence in the rallies for Palestine and for Gaza is so significant and so big.
The thing is that it's not new. For example, I've known many people in Jewish Voices for Peace.
Yes.
And I can remember there was something that was supposed to happen in the University of Penn campus maybe four years ago, to come on the campus, and there was opposition to it. And the thing is that many of the representatives of the Jewish Voice of Peace were actually rabbis, local rabbis. That's something that people really, as you say, that's something that we're not getting. It's like, I think we're pigeonholing people, and we shouldn't be, and to understand what the opposition to this is represented by.
I would add to this that actually the real movement against Jewish students, and especially Jewish students supporting Palestine, was from the Zionist camp on these campuses. We saw actually Zionists repressing Jews that were speaking for Palestine in campuses around the United States.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that Zionism is anti-Semitic. Zionism is a movement that wants to reduce Judaism or Jewish culture and identity and religion to one ideology. And luckily, happily, today, young Jewish students, young Jewish people are resisting that. They are exposing that as false. You cannot co-opt us all into a one state's ideology. We are a culture that's thousands of years old, and we are diverse too, and not in our name. Not in our name is the strongest, most resounding slogan today.
Well, I think it's important that this discussion has taken place for our audience, only because I don't see it on our media. But this is Philadelphia Loves Poetry, and Philadelphia loves the both of you. And I attended a reading that Ahmed and Huda gave at Kelly Writer House. I guess it was about back in the fall. And it was one of the most memorable poetry readings I've ever been at. I mean, I was really, I don't use this word, somewhat hypnotized. I really loved it. I wished it, I was really sitting there. I said, can it go on longer? Usually I get antsy and I say, okay, this is over and let's go to the book signing. But it was really remarkable. So I want to pick up there and I want to give the platform to the both of you to share with our audience your poetry in English, which is amazing, and then the translation by Huda in Arabic.
We thank you for that
Thank you so
opportunity.
much.
Back in the fall, the world was a slightly brighter place, so we're happy to go back to that moment. But I think we decided before we read English and Arabic, we're going to share sections from a poem we co-authored, and it's titled Holy Land Wasted, and it's a response to Eliot's The Wasteland. Would you like to say something about why we wrote this poem?
I wrote this poem, or I began writing this poem when I was actually outside of the country. I was in Spain, and I was planning to go to Palestine. That's in December. And for some reason, I went back to certain memories related to being a student of the English language and being trained in a way to understand the English tradition. And it was interesting for me what was happening in my head during that time. So I decided to begin writing as a response to The Wasteland. And then I shared some of this with Huda. And I think what happened is that Huda usually is my first reader. And she gives me a feedback. But in this case, she actually gave me more than feedback. She started writing her own stanzas. And I really loved her input. And I thought, let's just do a back and forth. Mm-hmm. And that was the main context for, it was my trip to Palestine at these difficult times. I was going to Bethlehem, my city, and I shared this with Huda, and then we came up with this.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that both Ahmed and I went to American universities back home. I studied at the American University of Beirut. He studied at Bethlehem University, which is a missionary university in Palestine. So we've grew up listening and reading to Eliot as a text with power, gathering the ruins of the world post-World Wars. But we felt that we needed to poke at him, to write against him in this moment where our world is actually in ruins and rubbles, and his voice doesn't really hold. It should be replaced by our voices. So.
This is the first section. April is not that bad, actually. August is the coolest month, maybe. Say what you may of memory and desire, the faint smell of semen trees the Americans brought to the Middle East, those strange words we inhaled in the garden of Bethlehem Uni, the same smell at AUB, another American campus on native lands. We looked at one another, and we couldn't put words to work. We thought of the naked figures we wound our bodies into. All for what? Marie, Marie, is my Deutsch instructor, the one who wiped chalk on her butt cheeks, only to add insult to injury. Of course, we were horny teenagers, waiting for a sign of the flesh to make itself visible. Did you know, dear reader, that we learned German in Palestine? What a strange destiny it was to be sent to the German headmaster's office when I dealt my English teacher a verbal blow. He asked me, upon mischief, "Would you drop yourself in a well if someone told you to?" I said, "It really depends, dear master, on the depth of the well, of course." Should I read the second section, or?
I'll read the last one so we move on.
Yeah.
So this is the last section of this poem. Phlebas was really the Palestinian. Phoenician was just the story he told to pass under the wire, slip through edges of cities unreal. He counted his bones every night, his teeth too, thinking of rubble. He dreamed of the cry of gulls and the deep sea swell and wished for death by water, a rendezvous with the sea, at least, an escape from the siege of burning sands at last. He passed the stages of his age and youth, waiting for the rocket to fall. No death, the sound of death only. Gentile or Jew, O you who click and swipe, turn and fold the blood-drenched screens into your eyes. Consider Phlebas, who was once handsome and tall as you. He did not drown. Thirsty, his body overflowed with unlived days. They spilled out, and the flood of blood trickled in the sand.
Okay, so we move on from our co-authoring to
Translation.
some translations, and I'll start with a couple of poems from Bitter English, my first book in English. And this is Map. From above, we pass the places I couldn't visit on this return to Palestine. It's all there on the screen in front of me and for me to see, only on a screen. I look out window panes, yes. We're above clouds, nothing recognizable. From Amman, we pass over more white clouds. Over Jerusalem now, I turn the screen to language. Are these Arabic words I see? Why? I can't read them anymore. Maybe, I say maybe, I need to be there on level with the land in order to read the land.
خريطة. في الجو نمر فوق أماكن أعرف أني لن أبلغها. كلها هنا على الشاشة أمامي، هنا أمامي حتى أراها على الشاشة فقط. أنظر من النوافذ، نعم، نحن فوق الغيم الآن ولا شيء يبين. فوق عمان نعبر الغيم الأبيض، الآن فوق القدس. أبحث على الشاشة عن اللغات. أعربية هذه الكلمات أمامي، لماذا لا أستطيع قراءتها؟ ربما أقول لنفسي ربما أحتاج أن أكون هناك على الأرض لكي أقرأ الأرض.
Yeah, thank you, Huda. Actually, I just want to mention that the collection of poems that Huda translated was published in this book now, in Arabic. And I was there for the launch in Beirut.
And the title of the book in Arabic is لغة ليست واحدة, not one language.
Or a language, not one, or something like that, yeah. So, In the reading in Beirut, I actually read the Arabic, the translations, and I want to turn to a poem called Malmoom, which is a poem that uses the Arabic word Malmoom. And Malmoom is from a verse in Arabic that I've always had in my mind as a child. ما أطيب العيش لو أن الفتى حجر تنبو الحوادث عنه وهو ملموم.
And the translation is that life would be very sweet if one were a stone composed upon itself, and the calamities of time slide off of it. So being a stone is a sense of safety.
Yeah.
And that's what the word malmoom means.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe the other Arabic verse that I should mention is the one referring to Abu Tamam, the poet Abu Tamam. And that Arabic verse is لا أنت ولا الديار ديار خف الهوى وتولت الأوطار. And I'm saying these as a way of reclaiming Arabic as my language. I know the language. I chose to write. I chose to write in English, and I still beat myself up about that. But here's another poem in English that has an Arabic title, Malmoom. Don't waste a line, your ink, or anything else. There's no room for all the thinking of you and others. On this page, you are not you, as one ancient poet put it for mouths to repeat after him. For how many years? And there's the lookout for your spring, Abu Tamam. Your word is one with the world too often. You are the true discovery of exile. The self wanders and adopts you only to remain in you intact. Thank God there is still a possible thing. There is still the stone standing, brushing again and again against the accidents of the world. And there, that word and the sound, its echo that keeps us all together and very much lonely.
ملموم لا تهدر حبرا ولا سطرا واحدا، لا متسع لكل هذا التفكير فيك وفي سواك على هذه الصفحة. أنت لا أنت كما قال شاعر قديم مرة وظلت تردد بعده الأفواه كم سنة. ها هي شرفتك وهذا انتظار ربيعك يا أبا تمام. كلمتك كثيرا ما تكون والعالم واحدا. أنت اكتشاف المنفى الحقيقي والنفس تهيم وتتبناك لتبقى فيك ملمومة. أحمد الله على ممكن واحد، على الحجر واقفا تحف به مرة بعد مرة حوادث الدهر، وهناك الكلمة والصوت والصدى الذي يجمعنا ويبقينا معا كلا في وحدته. And I have to say, translating this poem was an absolute pleasure, because as Ahmad said, it already has the echoes of Arab, the voices of Arab poets. So this was bringing them back into their own language. It was a circle being complete in a way. That doesn't often happen when you're a translator.
Yeah. I enjoy listening to my poems in Arabic more than I enjoy listening to myself saying them in English, which is a very strange sensation, I guess.
Well, to me, and I told you when I was at Kelly Rader's house, it was the sound. You know, one time, and I mean, I have some facility in Spanish, right? probably more now than I did before. But I always used to go and read Spanish aloud, Pablo Neruda's poems, just to hear,
Just to hear, yeah.
just to hear the sound of those words. And I had that same experience when I was out at Kelly's Radio's house. I said, I don't have to know. It's the sound of a language that's, so compelling.
Yeah, I mean that's what poetry is all about in many ways. It's about,
I mean, I listen to
registering
jazz
sound,
music,
yeah,
and if somebody asks me, can you translate it for me? I said, no, I really can't.
yeah.
You have to be there in the moment of it. And if you're there in the moment and it's yours, and you decide what you're going to do.
I like what you said before we were live, that hearing these in English and Arabic, it's like hearing the same, or hearing two different instruments
Exactly.
being played.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that I even have the ability to play two different instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I can write in Arabic, and I write also in English. But let's not get too carried away by our observations. Let me read from Border Wisdom, my new book. Let's not forget that one. So this is called The Disappearance. Chalky steps, chair hugging chair. Not long ago, all was well, and then, one on top of the other, they've been stacked. Tables all smothered by stiff legs, and some hard flat bellies, and not much more happened after that. Everyone remained where they've been placed. A strange arrangement has just taken place. Without the sitters, they felt themselves kings for once, on top of the world, so to speak. And that was that, for a while, till they began feeling an itch for what used to be, for the old times, when they were murdered every day, and people sat there to witness.
اختفاء خطوات من كلس كرسي يحتضن كرسيا منذ برهة كان كل شيء على ما يرام وبعدها واحدا فوق الآخر تكدست الكراسي والطاولات ناءت تحت الأرجل الخشبية والبطون القاسية المسطحة. لم يحدث الكثير بعد هذا. كل بقي حيث هو في هذا الترتيب الغريب الذي استجد. بلا الجلاس شعر كل كرسي بأنه ملك جالس فوق سقف العالم كما يقال، وكان هذا لفترة. بعدها بدأت الكراسي تتململ، تتوق إلى ما كان، إلى زمن مضى حين كانت تقتل كل يوم ويجلس الناس شهودا.
Very nice. Maybe to take the two instruments metaphor into account, maybe we should read some poems back and forth. And I think that maybe the best poem for that is Looking for Shade in Beirut.
I love that poem.
And let's start with the first and see. So I think I'm gonna read the section, and then Huda would turn to the Arabic, and we go back and forth.
Yes.
Corrupt and corrupting, I proceed. Like a chant on a hill, I decorate my days with more days. O dreams, do not wake. Shut eyes. Oh, how the air creates, how the hours blend, all gone. At once I see there's nothing to be seen.
مخربا مخربا أمضي كأغنية على تلة، أزين أيامي بأيام أخر، أحلام لا تثق أغمض عينيك، كم يخلق الهواء هواء، والساعات كم تذوب في الساعات وتذهب كلها، فجأة أرى كل شيء وليس ما يرى.
Here, an old ache I hold in one corner of this chipped bone. Something breaks and the pain begins and begs. Like a sluggish snail, it begs a start that never ends.
هنا أمسك بوجع قديم في زاوية في صدع في العظام، ينكسر شيء ما فيبدأ الألم يدب لجوجا بطيئا كحلزون، وبداية الألم لا تنتهي.
So I witness and wait, and I wait and wait to witness. Some more I raise my head to the blue, to the clouds. See there? See there the old and the new, how time can pass us by, how these walls of old wars have been hidden. Oh, what giant and mad bird has been pecking at this city.
هكذا أقف شاهدا منتظرا، أنتظر وأنتظر وأشهد، أرفع رأسي أنظر إلى الأزرق نحو الغيم هناك، أترى القديم والجديد، أترى كيف يغلبنا الزمن كل مرة، وكيف تقف جدران الحروب القديمة عارية، أي طائر عملاق مجنون ظل ينقر هذه المدينة.
Sigh after sigh, this is the place of far-fetched emptiness, of narrow sidewalks that have no room for steps, the ones demanding and constant.
تنهيدة إثر تنهيدة، هذا موطن الفراغ البعيد المنال، والأرصفة الضيقة التي لا تتسع للأقدام، تلك التي لجوجة متتابعة تدب.
On the streets, the beggars beg. They always extend. I imagine and decline the hands no longer matter. No longer can one count or account. We pass figures. How many? Millions? All set, all sent to this corner of hunger.
في الشوارع يسأل السائلون، تمتد أيديهم الكثيرة، أتخيلها وأحبطها أيد ما عاد يراها أحد، فكيف أحصيها وكيف أفهمها؟ أمر بهم جميعا، ما أكثرهم مبعدين إلى زاوية الجوع هذه.
A marred and martyred language no one speaks here. We exchange views. I am beside myself, of course, but hear me, imitate others. Oh, the figures we avoid are at once us.
لغة مشوهة شهيدة لا أحد يتكلمها، ولكننا مع ذلك نمضي في تبادل الآراء. أخرج من نفسي لأراها، اسمع كيف أقلد الآخرين، وكل الذين أتفاداهم هم فجأة أنا.
When will this deranged tongue, when will it cry? When will it sustain? Will it grant me life or death? Will it grant me choice or dime? I can flip my luck like dawn. I can drown it among the fish, but I have no length for life. I'm ashamed, trying to situate. but instead I evade into my own invention of space as things pile up. Here, nothing gets tossed or thrown. The blood of martyrs and murderers all the same, all preserved and reserved for the hour and the next, and the one preceding.
وهذا اللسان المختل متى سيقوى على الرثاء؟ متى سيعيلني؟ هل سيمنحني حياة أم موتا؟ هل سيعطيني خيارا مددا؟ أستطيع أن أقلب حظي كالفجر، أن أغرقه بين الأسماك، ولكن لا جلد لي على الحياة وطولها، فأخجل، أحاول مكوثا ولكني أناور في فضاء أخترعه، بينما الأشياء تظل تتكدس هنا، لا شيء ينتهي أو ينفد، دماء الشهداء دماء القتلة سيان، كلها تدخر وتحفظ لهذه الساعة والتي تليها ولساعة سبقت كل هذا.
The tireless tires of this city, the stuff of flames, creators of dark fumes, setters of gloom. I see them, here and there, buried in the boil, maybe fed up, and yes, fed to the soil.
عجلات هذه المدينة تدور وتدور، تبعث لهبا، تلهث دخانا أسود، تتنفس عتمة، أراها الآن هنا وهناك مدفونة في هرج المدينة مستهلكة تطعم للتراب.
The time is spent on screens, the news, and nothing is new. People drop like flies. They want to speak, make sounds, ashes on ash, a body murdered every hour. And if only I could shame these days with color.
نهدر الوقت على الشاشات، أخبار ولا شيء جديد، يتساقطون كالذباب، يريد واحدهم أن يقول شيئا، أن يحدث صوتا، ولا شيء، رفات فوق رماد، وكل ساعة جسد يقتل، ليتني كنت أقدر، ليتني استطعت، وهذه الأيام علني بقليل من اللون أفضحها.
Wow, that was marvelous. We have about 3 minutes left. So if you have maybe a shorter one you want to read and translate, I think we can accomplish that.
I started with a theme of tables and chairs, and I'll end maybe with that theme in the poem that is called Back Then, Bethlehem. That's the last poem of the book, page 101. Jesus, a prophet or a god, because in the shop he made, as every carpenter of the time, tables and chairs. Out of wood came the word, as the original impulse was to hide behind an act. One can't be a prophet or a god without a cover, something to do, till the word gets around, so to speak. And as metal was not a thing for laymen to play with, it had to be wood, the only dry thing that could catch fire and lead, like the word, peoples, animals, and angels, off course towards the light.
يسوع نبي أو إله، لأنه في الورشة كان يصنع كما صنع النجارون وقت ذاك، كراسي وطاولات. من الخشب تأتي الكلمة، وبما أن المرء ينزع إلى التخفي وراء صنيع ما، فلا يكون نبيا أو إلها بلا غطاء، بلا شيء يشغله ريثما تشيع الكلمة. وبما أن المعادن لم تكن ليعبث بها العوام، كان لابد من الخشب، ذاك اليباس الوحيد القابل للاشتعال الدافع كما الكلمة الملأ والحيوان والملاك ليحيدوا عن الطريق ويهيموا باتجاه الضوء.
Well, this has been such a wonderful experience. And I'm sure our audience really enjoys it. And I really appreciate both of you coming on Philly Loves Poetry to really discuss what, truly is happening from a cultural standpoint, but also sharing your remarkable poetry. I really enjoyed it.
Can we thank you,
Yes,
Charles?
thank you.
And
Thanks
may
so much.
we meet again and Palestine is free.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, thank you. And I don't know if in your bio is included what your role is at University of Pennsylvania. Can you
I'm an associate professor of Arabic literature at the University of Pennsylvania.
at the center, the center,
the
Arabic Center?
It's called the Department of Middle Eastern Languages and
Okay.
Civilizations.
Well, I'm glad we got that in.
Yes.
So, thank you again
Thank you.
very much, and I hope that we have another opportunity, to do this. So, in closing, this is just one of the many things that Moonstone Arts Center does. Throughout the year, we sponsor literally hundreds of poetry readings of poets of all types, from all groups, and it's really marvelous. I only say that to understand this is just one. And the Moonstone Arts Center and Larry Robbins really has been a cultural treasure to this city. So we were talking about culture and the thriving of culture, and what Moonstone Arts has done to bring the love of poetry to this area has really been remarkable, but sometimes taken for granted. So I say to you, our audience, is, we have a website, moonstoneartscenter.org, and you can go onto that site and you can find ways that you can support us on an ongoing basis, because we need your support. In addition to doing these readings, we're also a publisher of poems. And it started maybe 6 or 7 years ago. In fact, my book, Haitian Mud Pies, was the very first poem, a book of poems published by them. And since then, I think there have been over 200 books, including chapbook contests, anthologies, and anthologies that meet every single crisis that is happening in the society. So please support us. And I want to thank, of course, Sergio for his ongoing support to make this happen every time. So thank you.